Eventually, retribution caught up with King Leopold II. His son's birth presented a disturbing deformity, eerily reflecting Leopold's most heinous offenses committed in Belgium. King Leopold II was celebrated as the Builder King due to the numerous construction ventures he authorized. However, concealed beneath this reputation and spanning across the Congo Free State were grim realities. Leopold was, in essence, a brutal figure. The repercussions of the French Revolution extended well beyond Paris, as guillotines were erected in the Place de la Concorde. Leopold II's paternal grandfather was compelled to escape for his life, seeking refuge in the United Kingdom, where he passed away 2 years later. Leopold's mother, Louise of Orléans, consistently regarded as delicate and emotionally sensitive, was heartbroken and died in the same year. In his teenage years, Leopold II faced successive family losses. However, he subsequently encountered someone who could heal his emotional wounds. 3 years after his mother's passing, he entered into matrimony with Marie Henriette of Austria. Much like their affection for Leopold, the Belgian populace developed a fondness for Henriette, appreciating her vibrant and dynamic nature, along with her kind disposition. She appeared to embody everything that Leopold II did not. His formal public service commenced in 1855 as a senator and the designated heir to the monarchy. He promptly began expressing his viewpoints, regardless of their controversial nature. He emerged as a strong proponent for expanding Belgium's colonial territories, journeying through regions in both Asia and Africa in search of opportunities. On December 10, 1865, King Leopold I passed away, and a week later, his son, Leopold II, was sworn into office, ascending to the throne as King of the Belgians. Notwithstanding the atrocities he would later inflict upon the Congolese people, within Belgium itself, Leopold was, in fact, a progressive character. Among his most significant legislative achievements were extensive social reforms. He even granted laborers the entitlement to establish unions. He enacted several child labor regulations designed to safeguard Belgium's youth from exploitation, and even established a form of weekend, providing workers with Sundays as a day of rest. This was grimly ironic considering his impending actions in the Congo Free State. Part of Leopold II's overarching vision encompassed a vast, sprawling overseas empire composed of lucrative colonies. However, his actions revealed his genuine motives. He appeared solely focused on acquiring colonies for his own personal gain, utilizing governmental funds. Initially, his aspirations were directed toward the Philippines. He surmised that Queen Isabella II of Spain, the existing colonial power in the Philippines, was vulnerable and therefore might be willing to sell her possessions. However, his ambassador, recognizing the offense such an offer would cause, never communicated it. When Isabella II was deposed in 1868, Leopold made another attempt to purchase the Philippines. There was, however, a significant obstacle. He lacked the financial resources. He attempted to conceive a strategy that would transform the Philippines into an independent nation, implying that a private individual could acquire it. When this scheme proved unsuccessful, he redirected his avaricious ambitions elsewhere, Africa. For the better part of a decade, Leopold labored fruitlessly to secure colonies across Africa and Asia. However, by 1876, it became unequivocally clear that he needed to revise his approach. He founded an international scientific and philanthropic organization termed the International African Association. In actuality, it was not a charitable entity, but a private holding company under his ownership. He then enlisted the services of the explorer Henry Morton Stanley and dispatched him towards the Congo region to establish a colony. Through astute diplomacy, Leopold successfully persuaded the majority of European nations and the United States to acknowledge him as the sovereign of this newly proclaimed territory. At the conclusion of the Berlin Conference in 1885, Leopold finally realized his aspiration. Belgium had just evolved into a substantial colonial power. The newly formed Congo Free State was almost 80 times larger than Belgium itself, and Leopold possessed exclusive dominion over it, governing with his private army, the infamous Force Publique. The initial natural resource extracted from the Congo for exploitation was ivory. Although highly profitable, Leopold remained unsatisfied. It wasn't generating sufficient revenue to finance his grand ambitions within Belgium. However, a sudden and dramatic surge in the demand for rubber altered everything. The Congo Free State possessed abundant natural resources that Leopold could exploit for his personal and political advantage, and rubber held the potential to be the most lucrative. Nevertheless, extracting sap from rubber plants demanded extensive hours of arduous labor. Back in Belgium, Leopold persisted in advocating for the rights of ordinary workers. However, in stark contrast, within the Congo Free State, he implemented a drastically different policy. Driven by his newfound need for inexpensive and abundant labor, Leopold disregarded his commitments from the Berlin Conference and abandoned all pretense of operating a charitable organization. What followed was unadulterated horror. Having isolated himself from much of the external world, Leopold was at liberty to act as he wished in the Congo Free State. Employing his Force Publique, he coerced the indigenous population into forced labor, compelling them to gather sap for rubber production, which he then traded at exorbitant prices. The people of the Congo Free State never received any compensation, but they did witness something else. Suffice it to say, the populace did not willingly volunteer to work for Leopold, so he resorted to employing horrific methods of coercion, beatings, mass and indiscriminate executions, and brutal mutilations to ensure compliance even among the most independent-minded Congolese people. The Force Publique abducted the families of rubber workers. The infamous photograph displays a grieving Congolese man with the severed hand and foot of his 5-year-old daughter before him. Failure to meet rubber collection quotas was an offense punishable by death, and the Force Publique was mandated to provide the severed hand of their victim as evidence. Occasionally, victims survived being shot and feigned death as their hand was severed. Baskets filled with severed hands placed at the feet of European post commanders became the emblem of the Congo Free State. The collection of hands evolved into an end in itself. Force Publique soldiers presented them at stations as a substitute for rubber. They even ventured out to gather hands instead of rubber. They became a form of currency. When the English missionary John Harris visited the Congo Free State, he was unable to articulate the horrors he had observed. I have just returned from a journey inland to the village of Nsongboyo. The abject misery and utter desolation are positively indescribable. Despite a subdued but growing chorus of protests and condemnations, Leopold continued his tyrannical reign. The author, historian, and journalist Adam Hochschild was the first to furnish a proper assessment of the devastating consequences of Leopold's rule. Using data from Belgium's own census, he brought the human cost of Leopold's cruel policies into stark focus. 10 million lives lost, approximately half of the entire population. The barbaric treatment of the Congolese was egregious enough, but the secondary and tertiary ramifications of deliberate neglect and malice were even worse. Diseases such as smallpox and sleeping sickness ravaged the Congo Free State, claiming millions of lives. It was invariably only a matter of time before karma caught up with Leopold II, and in 1902 it finally did. When the British novelist Joseph Conrad toured the Congo as a steamer captain, he was profoundly moved by the plight of the people that he altered the course of history. His 1902 novella, Heart of Darkness, provided the world with a first-hand glimpse into the atrocities being perpetrated due to European colonialism in Africa. With the book captivating readers globally and pressure escalating on Leopold, he resolved to counteract his negative publicity with positive press. He remunerated the author Mary French Sheldon to tour the Congo Free State, ensuring she was only exposed to what he wished her to see. Upon her return to England, she declared, "I have witnessed more atrocities in London streets than I have ever seen in the Congo." By 1908, even Leopold's Belgian subjects had grown weary of his atrocities. Facing political opposition, he was compelled to sell the Congo Free State to the Belgian people. Naturally, he ensured he was compensated handsomely. The shame of the Congo Free State fell equally on Belgium as it did on Leopold II. The Belgian people were left with no alternative but to purchase the problematic colony from their corrupt monarch. In total, they dispersed 215 million francs, with a staggering 50 million francs going directly to Leopold, and an additional 45 million francs allocated towards his domestic building projects. Leopold II may have been a butcher in the Congo, but within Belgium, he was a builder. He utilized a substantial portion of the profits he accrued from the Congo Free State to finance extensive construction projects across his kingdom. Some of the more iconic structures include the Basilica of the Sacred Heart, the Hippodrome, Wellington Racetrack, and, ironically, the Royal Museum for Central Africa. After the Belgian parliament forced Leopold to relinquish the Congo Free State, rather than acknowledging his numerous crimes, he commenced destroying evidence. Reportedly, he remarked to one aide, "They have no right to know what I did there." Not all of Leopold II's bloody gains from the Congo were directed towards the Belgian people in the form of opulent new buildings. The builder king also indulged himself. He acquired numerous private estates, expanded the royal castle of Laeken, and constructed magnificent personal gardens. His marriage to Henriette ultimately did not fulfill his expectations. Although the couple managed to have 4 children, Leopold suffered the loss of his heir. His only son, Prince Leopold, fell into a pond at the age of 9 and contracted pneumonia, an illness from which he never recuperated. Following the loss of his son, Leopold descended into profound sorrow, and his marriage deteriorated as a consequence. He attempted in vain to conceive another son and heir, but only succeeded in fathering another daughter. Heartbroken and disillusioned, Leopold and Henriette separated in 1902, the same year that Heart of Darkness was published. Henriette passed away after departing her memorial service. An Italian anarchist discharged 3 shots at Leopold's carriage, all of which missed their target. Despite his appalling reputation, the Belgian populace rejoiced at his survival. Later that day, while attending the theater, the audience accorded him a raucous round of applause. Even though Leopold, standing on the international stage, had suffered a severe blow, he still commanded sufficient respect to receive communications from foreign dignitaries. Even the Pope dispatched him a letter of solidarity. It turns out Leopold was as inadequate a husband to Marie Henriette as he was a king to the Congolese people. Throughout his marriage, he engaged in numerous extramarital affairs, but none captured his attention, quite like the 16-year-old working girl, Caroline Lacroix. At 65 years of age, 3 years before his wife's death, Leopold initiated the affair that would irrevocably tarnish what remained of his reputation. His decade-long relationship with Lacroix scandalized the Belgian people and provoked even greater outrage than the revelations of his atrocities in the Congo. The infatuated king bestowed upon her extravagant gifts, immense sums of money, entire estates, and the title of Baroness Vaughan. Leopold fathered 2 illegitimate sons with Lacroix, both of whom he granted honorary titles. His second son was born with a severely deformed hand. The newspaper The Era in Belgium proclaimed it vengeance from on high. Leopold desired to ensure that all of his numerous estates, castles, and heritage buildings remained within his family. However, lacking a legitimate heir, he devised a scheme. He established the Royal Trust, guaranteeing that his assets would pass to Belgium upon his death. Naturally, he incorporated a clause that permitted his family to utilize the properties at their leisure. His final act as King of Belgium only solidified his position as a villainous figure. In a clandestine, secret ceremony just 5 days before his demise, Leopold perpetrated the unthinkable. He married his longtime mistress. Fortunately, when the marriage was disclosed, the Belgian parliament invalidated it. Leopold II never truly confronted the consequences for the horrific acts he perpetrated in the Congo, and no quantity of grand edifices in Belgium could conceal his transgressions. Following his death, he bequeathed a vast fortune in Congo securities to his mistress, Lacroix. His daughters from his first marriage attempted unsuccessfully to reclaim the funds, but ultimately, Lacroix absconded with Leopold II's blood-soaked fortune. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy uncovering compelling stories in history, please like and subscribe to continue exploring with us.